Space dwarves? Space dwarves? Space dwarves! Ladies and gentlemen, the Space Dwarf Revolution is finally here, and I couldn't be happier.
Keep your feet on the ground.
I'm Andrew from Hidden Machine, and I'm here to tell you about Dwarfenstein, or Dwarfenstein.
This is my boob stick.
Dwarfenstein is a space dwarf first-person shooter, which is really hard to say, released in May of 2022. Space dwarf first-person shooter, space dwarf first-person shooter. Dwarfenstein, or Steen, follows the story of one single space dwarf, struggling to survive after escaping what was known as the Rapture. The greed of your fellow dwarves has led them to dig deep into the core of your home world, setting off a cataclysmic event that destroyed the entire planet.
And this caused the Rapture.
An unknown amount of time later, your faithful robot pal here wakes you up from cryostasis to inform you that cryostasis brown bricks to inform you that his other robot pals mysteriously ran away while on a fuel gathering mission. It's up to you to deploy to a nearby planet and gather fuel crystals to keep your dwarven space boat afloat. Each mission has you fighting to defend your base, usually made up of 2 drilling machines and a rocket that takes the crystals back to your ship. The game plays pretty much exactly how it looks. Waves of enemies spawn in and you have to shoot them. You have your guns and this kind of bizarre freeze ray that can also be used to throw things, execute fallen enemies, remove shields, and be combined with your guns to give them an alternate fire ability. There are 3 dwarven classes to choose from. One focusing on guns, the next focusing on electricity damage, and the third focusing on turrets. You can unlock up to 3 different weapons for these classes using the crystals that you find during the levels. And in addition to those weapons, you can also purchase up to 4 special abilities for each class and perks. So yes, this game does have the sacred
light RPG elements.
You can choose any class for any level, and you can even replay levels whenever you like. Each level has a few different difficulty options that give you more and more rewards, but replaying a level on a difficulty that you've already beaten will not give you any crystals. I was originally worried that some classes would get underpowered if I focused on another class for a while, but fortunately things aren't too expensive and perks are actually shared between classes. The only thing is you can only choose 2 perks per level, which I was a little bit disappointed by. I mostly played as the engineer, the one with the turrets. I had unlocked all 4 turrets, a machine gun that was also like a missile launcher, and my perks upped my weapon damage and extended how long my turrets stayed active. I was having a pretty decent time with the game at first. It was fun fighting these big waves of enemies and just barely making it out alive.
We are under attack.
A few rounds in though, things started to sour just a little bit. Maybe it was my loadout or the class choice that I made, but the combat started to really feel not very, intellectual, if that makes sense. While each enemy does have their own unique attack and move patterns, it kind of just felt like each wave sent slightly more guys at me, and all I could really do was shoot them. I know that's the point of the game, but when you think about how you play games like Doom and Doom Eternal and Doom 64 and every single Doom game that this is clearly drawing inspiration from, there's a lot more emphasis on dynamic combat with having to adapt to your surroundings and things like that. I don't know, that was I don't know, I didn't script this part, so hopefully that made sense. Even though I spent what felt like most of the rounds dead, dying doesn't actually make you lose, you're only unable to fight for about 10 seconds, I still never lost a round. The enemies were almost always strong enough to kill me in one shot, a shot I usually never saw coming, but then never strong enough to really ever fully destroy my base while I was down.
Let's get to fighting.
Speaking of which, the Steam description mentions that Dwarfenstein, or Steen, is a mix of first-person shooter and tower defense. And while I get that I'm defending a base from waves of enemies, I guess I expected there to be more tower defense elements, like deployable turrets that all classes can use, and environmental things that you could interact with, different paths and things like that you see in, tower defense games. In this game, every level is more like an arena, and all of these spawn points that enemies have are fixed, and you can see where all of them are. So those elements are definitely present, but I'd like to see a little bit more. I think the graphics are charming, and the game's definitely fun to jump into and do a couple rounds. As far as things that I could suggest for improvement, I'm a little torn. and here's why. I would suggest adding things like co-op with friends, more worlds to travel to, and even more fleshed out RPG elements like different gear and class builds. But honestly, those are all things that Deep Rock Galactic has already mastered. I do think there's room in the market for Dwarfenstein, or Stein, as it's more focused on the run-and-gun combat of Doom with the somewhat currently absent tower defense elements. Fully realized, I think that would be really awesome. And I love me some Space Dwarves, dude. I really do. And tower defense games, man. I used to spend hours and hours on Newgrounds playing like Beloon's Tower Defense or whatever the fuck it's called. And any game that was tagged as a tower defense, I'd play it. I really like that genre. So the thought of doing like a first-person shooter mix-up with a tower defense game, that's super cool. And I've always wanted there to be, you know, more installments in that genre that really kind of define it, because I don't think we've had just that one killer game that is a mashup of those two genres. Maybe I'm wrong. If you know of any, please let me know down in the comments. Overall, though, I do think $6 is a very fair asking price for Dwarfenstein, or Steen, even though Hidden Machine was kindly gifted a review copy. I hope to see more from this developer and just more Space Dwarves in general. Like, hell yeah, man. I mean, I can't believe the squats are finally back in 40k. Like, okay, I know they're called Leagues of Votann or Votann now, but like the dwarves in Age of Sigmar were so cool. When I got into 40k, I was excited to learn about Space Dwarves, you know, the 40k version of the Age of Sigmar dwarves. But where'd they go? They just disappeared? What is this, man? The Elder Scrolls with the Dwemer? Why do the dwarves always disappear, dude? Like, Warcraft has dwarves, they're badass. Why does Elder Scrolls have to make them all disappear and then the same dude's fucking 42? But they're back now. What I'm trying to say is give me more dwarves, man. They're cool. Use them more.